Welcome back. Well, last week was incredible. Kelly and I getting to drive this car was unbelievable. It exceeded every expectation we had. Just an absolute blast to drive this thing, to learn how to drive this thing. Definitely need some more seat time, but we got the kind of the shakedown test. We found out some new problems. We have some of our existing problems that we went over there with that we're gonna try and get to tonight. So we're gonna try and tackle fuel pump. So there's two fuel pumps on this car. It's plumbed for two, and only one's working. So we got to figure out why the other one isn't working. We have a fresh air pump into our helmet. If you notice on our helmets, there is an connection point for a hose to go to. So these hoses come up, attach into our helmet, and provide fresh air, kind of gives it a positive charge of air to where it keeps the dust out. So you're blowing filtered air in, keeping the dust and everything else from coming in your helmet. So we got to get that fixed. And then in the back, some of you may have noticed that when we were driving in those videos, there was actually some smoke rolling out of the car. So that actually wasn't anything to do with the motor. The motor ran great. What it was happening is our transmission was leaking a bunch of fluid out this breather, and it was leaking it back onto this exhaust, doing some white smoke. So Kelly called Fortin. What an awesome company. He talked to him for over a half hour, talking to him about this transmission. They had everything on record, what was in it, the case that was just rebuilt. They had the gears, which gears they just replaced. They had a fresh rebuild before the last race that they raced in this car. So we have a really good transmission. And Jerry is the guy Kelly talked with, and Jerry said the only reason it would be blowing oil like that out the overflow is that it has more than 5 quarts. So we'll need to get this thing warm, we'll need to drain that down, and then refill it with only 5 quarts of oil. So the other thing you'll see back here is we have some interesting linkage. So that is from the shift, that's the shift linkage. It's coming back to the transaxle. So as soon as we went out there, we drove up and down the road a few times, and all of a sudden I went to go into third gear. Felt kind of funny, and obviously the shift linkage had come uncoupled. So we drove back to where the staging area where we had the car and found out that thread was stripped. So right there where we have that Allen, there's that Allen head held on by a vice grip down in there. That's because that thread was completely stripped out. That bolt was not holding or able to be tightened, so it was just coming loose all the time. So tried a few different things, and that's the fix that we used to run it the rest of the day. And we were pretty safe. You can see it has a safety on it to where if it was to fall off of there, we could still find it, maybe. So the other thing we're gonna try and tackle tonight, hopefully we get time for all this, is we're gonna get these CVs out. CV and axle, we wanna get those out. It's an expensive item. It's a wear item. We don't know what it looks like. So hopefully Brent put brand new ones in before the last race, but we don't know. So we need to pull that apart, see what it looks like, and just kind of go from there. So better get to work.
Crazy. Shift light.
Okay, so we got the pump out. This is all it is. Kind of inline pump. It goes to this Y. That separates out to each of the hoses. And then, I don't exactly know what's the matter with it yet. Kelly looked this up online. You could kind of see it in between there. It's 35 bucks to replace it. So it's not the end of the world if it's not an obvious problem. So of course, we pulled this pump apart, and maybe just hasn't moved in a while, so it was not wanting to release itself. But when we released it with the screwdriver, now it's all working great. So it looks like we'll just be able to put it back together and put it in the car. We'll have something fixed tonight. So these are different than our old car. So these axles come down through. In our old car, the back in here is where the CV stopped and the axle stopped and the CV started. This one goes all the way through, and I don't even quite know what it looks like, to be honest with you, but it bolts on this side just to get that axle length longer.
Yeah, so with a longer axle, you can have more CV joint angle. That didn't make sense. Cut that.
Nope, it's going in.
Ooh la la. The black goo.
Well, we did a lot of learning on this. We actually had to go to AGM Motorsports and look online to try and figure out how to get this thing apart. We learned that on a Fortin transaxle, the oil just starts running out of the bolt holes where it attaches to the transaxle, so that was kind of funny. You can see how big this 934 axle is. CVs are huge compared to our old car. We're not even exactly sure how to get this out yet. So this is the CV, this is the bearing, and I'm gonna have to, hopefully AGM has some more stuff on how to do it. Or we'll call Sam Barry, one or the other. We don't know yet. Kelly did find when he was taking this apart, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a crack right here. Wiping the start. There. So while this is all apart, we will, obviously we were talking about taking these arms off anyway. This heim joint's bad. So we'll get those arms off and all sandblasted, get that ground down, welded up. So we got a bunch of work to do. We still got the ignition on. Whoops. We're having a hard time with that tonight. But yeah.
Brian, getting all runny. It's time for bed. Okay, is this thing on still? Jeez.
Good morning. Welcome back. Well, last night, we just didn't get enough done. We ended up spending way too much time on fuel pumps. And we traced all this out. We got the loom out. We brought it back to the relays. We took all kinds of stuff apart and looked at it. And, well, unfortunately, all that it was good for learning, but we wasted a lot of time. Fuel pump A is ran off of the Motec. Doesn't have anything to do with the switch, really. It just comes on and works. Fuel pump B would be the backup. It's a switch that's hardwired from the switch to the fuel pump B. Came out here and checked it with the voltmeter in about 5 minutes, and it all works. So a little embarrassing, but we learned a lot on that. So need to get the brakes off, shocks off, just kind of like we did on the Baja however long ago. Do that same thing. And if you remember, the Heim's gonna be bad. So that's what we're gonna do today. And hopefully we can kind of knock this out fairly quickly. We'll see. So here we go. Got the shocks off on this. Got this first bolt right here loose. I'll get that back one loose, and then we're gonna be ready to drop this thing down and then take this race off. Yeah, so I think we're ready to pull this thing off. That is not a light little piece right there. That is a very large trailing arm. Pretty cool. All right, so this side went super fast. Just having done it yesterday, kind of figured out what we need to do, where we need to do it, how far the arm needs to come down. It just a lot smoother the second time. So all we gotta do is get these bolts out of here, and we'll be good. Pull this thing out. Oh boy. Okay, not quite sure what's going on there. Let's just be seized up a little bit. All right, we'll give the WD-40 a minute, see if that does anything. There's just something pretty fun about working on a race car. Just taking this apart, inspecting it all, seeing it all apart one day, work on a few things, get it all back together. It's just I don't know, satisfying. Same way when you finish a race, when you go to the race and you know your car's prepped well, you're not working on it right before the race, everything, you've gone through everything, and then when you finish the race, and a lot of it's to do with your prep, it's just a pretty neat feeling. So there's a lot of different ways that that racing's just fun to do. All right, let's see if WD-40 does the trick. Oh yeah. That helped a bunch. There it is. So I'm looking at the size of this race and the bearing that goes with it, and I'm thinking to myself, that's gonna be cheap. I'm gonna get these arms loaded up. We'll get them over to the machine shop, see if they fit in the sandblaster. Well, got the trailing arms over to the machine shop, but by the time I got there, it was a little bit too late to try and throw them in the sandblaster and get those all cleaned up. I needed to get home, get some laundry done, go shop, and do all that stuff that makes it okay for me to go work on the race car. So I decided to be smart and go do that. Sitting here, I'm editing tonight, and I really realized that I kind of stole my wife's home office. She's not using it anymore. And looking around here, there's just too much stuff that's it's not race related. So I think that this thing, it's feeling real. It's feeling like we're getting enough people watching and liking and subscribing that that I'm gonna need an office. So so hopefully when you guys see this next, it's gonna be a little less of that, and a little bit more of some of our old race cars and some other pictures like that. So I like to try and get that done and get that in the next video too. So there you have it. Well, thanks so much for spending your time watching us. Please like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.